Our edition here today is we're going to see a little bit off what we normally do. We do have some wonderful guests here, which I'll introduce in a minute. But today's show is mainly going to focus on what's going on in Sierra Leone and how we can help. Um, my guest today, I have the wonderful Emmanuel Opon, the from St. Cloud. Emmanuel Opon is actually works at the mayor's office as a community engagement coordinator. We're from the mayor's office. Is that right, Emmanuel?
Right.
All right. Thanks for coming, bro.
You're welcome.
All right, good seeing you. And our second guest is Alfreda Daniels. She is a community organizer at in the Minneapolis Region Labor Federation. How you doing?
I'm doing good, thank you.
All right, good to have you here.
Yep, good to be here.
All right. Well, so before we get started, tell us a little bit about, your day. How's
Well, first of all, I want to thank Radio Zane for inviting us over to talk about a very sensitive, critical issue going on. And like you mentioned, there hasn't been a lot of coverage on those issues. So hopefully, this platform will be an avenue to highlight that. It's a great day in Minnesota, sunny.
And, they have the state fair going on right now.
Right, I was at the state fair with my boss, the mayor, on Thursday, and it was really good.
so nice. I'm yet to do it.
Have you been there?
No, I haven't.
No.
Have you?
I have, yes. I've never been
Never?
there. I hate the rides.
It was my first time actually being at the state fair. And
Did you try the corn?
I tried the corn.
Well, yeah, you have to.
But
That's the only reason why I go. So.
Unfortunately, most of I think it's synonymous with the state fair, but almost everything is deep fried. From pickles to cheese. Cheese was deep fried.
Fried ice cream.
Right.
Yeah.
Fried
Alligator
pie.
They have a lot of things on stick.
Yeah. But it was fun, just going there, interacting and enjoying that Minnesota
Eating a lot of fried food.
habit.
Yeah,
eating
put on a lot of pop.
Alfred, you got to check this out. I mean, if you live in Minnesota, just to see you did it.
Maybe next year.
Next year.
Yeah, I think it's
Maybe.
worth it.
I almost went this year with you guys. Remember? But,
It's it's one of those things that one of Minnesota's pride and joy. So,
Right. And one thing that I think for me, personal observation is I'm hoping to see more exhibitions from the immigrant communities.
Right.
And I think I had a call from a friend of mine who sells food, was saying, hey, how can I get in there? How can I be able to sell stuff, be a food vendor, and showcase our culture? I do know they have an international bazaar that is dedicated to international cuisines. And
Is that new? Because I didn't see that last year.
I don't think it's new because I've been to that place 5 years ago.
Okay.
That's where Okonko is.
Yes,
the guy from St.
Okonko
Cloud.
was there, and they had some Caribbean, food and stuff.
Right.
Some Indian cuisines and Asian as well. But I'm hoping that would expand,
Right.
not just at a very specific location, but all over.
Right.
So I think we can work in making that happen, because we want to be able to showcase our rich culture and heritage.
Just to add to that, so a few years ago, Black Lives Matters, I don't want to make this conversation about Black Lives Matters, but one of their demands was we need more people of color at the state fair. They wanted to see that number actually increase, right? So you can say the same thing about immigrants also, okay? How many immigrants are actually selling at the state fair? So yeah, I see a lot of Minnesota-made stuff. Heard about the people that move here who consider themselves Minnesotan also, so yeah.
Yeah, and Minnesota does boast of a huge immigrant community, especially East African. What up to my Somalian brethren out there? I mean, they're doing very well in the state. They're contributing a lot to the state. So, it'll be nice to see that that aspect gets covered a little bit as well.
Right. And just to reiterate what Bishop said, they had, I think Black Lives Matter had a table on there, and I know there have been conversation in terms of the process involved in selecting vendors, but we've come a long way. There are still avenues to improve on that, and I'm hoping that that would improve with time. because there are a lot of folks that want to see more diversity in that capacity. So kudos to those that are serving on the planning committee, but I'm hoping that there'll be more showing, as we move forward.
Okay, yeah. All right, so before we move ahead, you all have some really cool titles and look like you do some really important work for the state of Minnesota. So I'd have you briefly tell us a little bit about what your work involves and what some of your day-to-day activities are and how you actually make a difference. Ladies first, so Alfreda Daniels.
So currently, I'm a community organizer. I organize in the northwest suburb cities, so that includes the two Brooklyns, Crystal, Maple Grove, and I organize around economic justice, racial justice, social justice issue. I also do a lot of immigration work as well, or education. I forget that piece as well. And also, I'm also a humanitarian and a local activist here in Minnesota and also back home. So I go back home a lot. That includes Liberia, Sierra Leone, and I grew up in Ghana. So
wow. Well, it looks like you've got all the corners of West Africa.
West African all covered.
I know.
So tell us a little bit about back home.
Okay, so I just got back on Wednesday night from Liberia, and this is like my second trip this year. In Liberia, well, first I have a nonprofit organization, which Emmanuel happens to be the president of, funded in 2012. And we do some work with former child soldiers. And our focus was Sierra Leone and Liberia. So when I went back in 2014, what I did was a few research with former child soldiers, just kind of seeing, after the war and after the disarmament, where they are and what kind of psychological help that they will need and stuff like that. But besides that, I go back home every year and I host a leadership development conference in Liberia because I believe educating the youth is actually going to help towards the progress of the country and the nation later. Wow. So I do that once a year, and I take people from here back with me to help teach as well.
Wow, that is incredible. Yeah. We should just carve out a segment just for this.
I know. We can listen to you all day.
That's a lot.
Yeah. So that's back home.
Right.
And here, I pretty much do whatever it is that concerns working people, and especially with immigrant community. So I do encourage people and educate people about unions and joining the unions. And about, labor rights and labor laws. And I also focus on education organizing as well. So we have, for example, the Osceola School District right now, we have majority of kids of color in that school, but a lot of the policies does not favor our kids. And we have teachers and counselors who don't understand our kids. So you see the achievement gap is completely wide. And each time it goes up this way instead of this way. So we do a lot of advocating for that, changing policies. Currently, I think on the school board of Osceola, we have about 6 board members, and we've never really had a board member of color. We've had it once, but that was an African American lady, but none from Brooklyn Park ever.
It is, it is. I find it fascinating. Minnesota has got some of the best schools and some of the worst schools in the country, which is, maybe another segment for this topic. So.
So
thanks a lot for sharing. We really appreciate all you do for our community. And now let's turn into Emmanuel. Emmanuel, how about you? How do you serve your community?
Well, maybe I should, share briefly about my history, because it's critical and always important sharing our stories. Because sometimes if you don't, then people wouldn't be able to know who you are, where you're from, and this kind of stuff. So originally, I'm from Ghana, West Africa. A small a population size of about
25 million, yeah.
Previously it used to be 21, but I guess the population has increased. So coming into the United States, I do recall coming here, recognizing some of the challenges that I had. Just to put it in a better perspective, so Ghana is a country that is more collectivistic. and those, traits are similar to that of Africans and Eastern countries. But coming into the United States, you realize that it's more independent living. You have to pretty much do everything by yourself.
Right.
So I did, and if you put it on a different tangent, Ghana was colonized by the British. So coming into the United States, recognizing the difference between the British language and the American language. So I had to navigate between that. I do recall when I was writing my research paper, my professor was telling me that everything that I wrote was basically wrong. So I couldn't really comprehend what she meant by that, So I struggled, through that, but quite frankly, I had some great mentors and support, from the university that enabled me to be able to graduate. So my background is deeply embedded in mental health, and I do want to emphasize that. So back home, I do recall doing my undergrad in psychology and recognizing how little mental health is known. And it was something that personally I didn't, really have a firm grasp about that. So it was something that I really wanted to learn more of. Because we all know how
they'll label
those
you as a witch.
labelings go.
Yeah.
There's no gray area. You're either crazy or normal. And that got me really thinking about it. So coming to St. Cloud State, graduating with my master's in community counseling psychology, and I also did a graduate certificate in chemical dependency. So by training, I'm a licensed professional clinical counselor. I'm a licensed graduate social worker, a licensed alcohol and drug counselor, and a national certified counselor. So I worked with the Department of Corrections for a while, and I guess, what made me do 2 programs was recognizing the connection between mental health and addiction and abuse, because you could see that all those things connect. So working with the GOC for a while, got down with that. Whilst on campus, I was involved in different organizations on campus. Part of it included the student government at that time, and also the graduate student association. So currently in my new role, working at the mayor's office, I work in a capacity where I'm the community engagement coordinator. From a technical standpoint, I do manage the boards and commission within the city. And also making sure, implementing the programs that the mayor has. And part of my role is making sure that the boards and commission is representative of the city. And I think Alfreda made a point where she mentioned how certain boards, and commission all across state is not representative. You have school boards that have only one minority on there. And if you bring it down, you realize that with students, it's more than that. The diversity within that part is more than it's represented on the boards and commissions. So I got appointed by the governor to serve on the State Advisory Council of Mental Health, because in my work as a professional working with folks with mental health issues, I recognize the lack of interventions when it comes to folks with mental health issues. There's lack of contrast sensitivity interventions. You have influx of immigrants and refugees coming in the area that are not getting adequate intervention. So part of my role was to advocate for that, making people self-aware, and that included being part of different task force and also making sure that hospitals, schools, colleges are well aware of some of the issues. So I have been serving in different capacities, providing training and consultations for hospitals, schools, presenting nationally on some of the cultural sensitivity when it comes to mental health issues. because I do recognize that most of the intervention now is more traditional, and it's been normalized for European white males. There's been a lot of work that has been done so far in mitigating that. But I'm just gonna keep it here. I do serve on the advisory board for a leadership program that I think will be critical for this conversation, and it's called the Juga Leadership Program.
Okay.
It's a program that was formed out of a need. If you look at St. Cloud, the non-white population there 26 years ago was just 2%, but now it's risen to about 17%. And I do know Bishop and a lot of immigrant students graduated from St. Cloud State, making that Yahoo. But maybe I don't want to go.
Yeah.
on.
So thanks a lot for sharing your story.
We'll probably get him on.
Yeah,
That
thanks
is
a lot
what I
for
was
sharing.
thinking.
Thanks a
Yeah.
lot for sharing your story, both of you guys, and obviously you guys are doing an amazing job for your
we'll
community.
have it.
This makes you.
How does it make you feel, though,
this-
Richard? What do you do
I
for
know,
the
just
community?
Just package something
This definitely makes me feel that I should up my game. But thanks for sharing, and I really, really appreciate you. This makes you, you are the perfect panel for this discussion. So now to our main topic, Sierra Leone and what's going there. Just a couple quick facts. Right now there is over 2,000 people homeless that essentially do not have any form of shelter whatsoever.
Probably 3,000.
Yeah. And rising, there's at the very least there's 600 confirmed deaths. There's more than that. Some just aren't confirmed. This all happened because there was a flood in the hillside that eroded away, collapsed. So all this has caused a ton of chaos in Sierra Leone, and unfortunately, that's something that's missed in our community. We do have certain tragedies that got a lot of attention, namely the Ebola, namely the hurricane in Houston right now, and the earthquake in Haiti last year. So why?
Not to catch you, but even what is happening in Europe, right? We
Right.
have like people renting a truck, running into a bunch of people, a few people dies, and we have a lot of coverage.
Right. So why is it that this particular situation in which some of the in comparison some of the tragedies we've had more deaths here, more tragedies here, but no one seemed to be even know about it or talk about it. Certainly you don't hear from our mainstream media or not even people in our community. So I want to hear you guys' thoughts, and finally we want to talk about how the average person can help, and give some specific next steps or locations for people to go to offer help, or whether it's in treasure or whether it's in time. So, Alfreda,
Yeah, she's always there.
Ladies first,
Well,
right?
she tossed it to you though.
Ladies first.
Let him go this time.
Okay.
I'll give him the respect.
Oh,
As the
wow.
man of the house.
His credentials is pushing you away.
Well, thanks, Alfred. But I think you should.
Yeah. So
Yeah, it's okay.
so why the lack of awareness? Really is
Yeah.
what I want our community to understand. I'm no researcher, and neither has Ben. And Ben and I were talking before. And it just looks like, even from the people in our network, not enough people even know there has been a flood in Sierra Leone.
Yeah.
Right, and I think Richard, you're right. There hasn't been a lot of coverage. I do recall when I read it on the news, and talking to some friends of mine, they were like, "What? This thing happened in Sierra Leone? How come I've never read about it or seen it on TV or anything like that?" So I had to say, well, you might probably want to Google and look at what's going on.
You can't even trust Google right now.
Right, but I was able to reach out to some of my Sierra Leonean friends, some of the leadership, and they were able to put it in a bigger perspective because they had families and friends that have been affected, and they were able to paint a very good picture on what was happening. In terms of coverage, I do want to recognize that BBC, did a little story on that, and I think a follow-up story, and Al Jazeera. From my research, those are the two sources that I know did some articles on that. So as far as mass media is concerned, it's really concerning because if you compare that to Ebola, I think the coverage for Ebola was enormous. Everyone knew about it, and in trying to compare those two, I would probably say that maybe the impact and the fact that it could potentially have an effect in the Western communities. Ebola, when Ebola came, I mean, just to for our audience sake, I served on the Ebola task force.
Oh, really?
So when Ebola became an epidemic, there was a mobilization of community leaders, and I think I was part of it. Alfreda was part of it. So it included the Guinean community leadership, the Liberian community leadership, Guinea, Liberian, Sierra Leone. I think we had folks from West Africa.
Yeah, so Emmanuel, maybe you're the right person to answer this. So why the lack of action? I mean, this happened the same part of, the world, and obviously one of it got enormous attention, and one of it absolutely no one has heard of. So what's the disconnect here?
I think the disconnect, quite frankly for me, I think the disconnect would probably be due to the fact that what it occurred in Sierra Leone, in terms of its effect, wouldn't have an impact, sadly, on Western culture,
Okay.
right?
Wow.
And the reason why I say that is when Ebola hit, it became an epidemic. It started spreading out. It moved to Liberia, Sierra Leone, Guinea, and there was a scare, kind of a scare, fear that it could potentially come to Western cultures.
Can I play a quick one? Can I play the devil's advocate? Because we were talking about even after the aftermath, there's going to be diseases and all that. Don't you think it's also going to affect people over here since it's a small world right now?
I mean, it's if to put it in a context, not to undermine the tragedy but it's Sierra Leone, right? Yeah. And it's a mudslide, and if you're looking at the effect, the potential effect of that, it wouldn't be nothing compared to Ebola.
That's true.
Right?
Yep.
And some of the reasons, from even as you shared earlier, was due to the fact that there wasn't better structure, there wasn't better zoning. So the reasons given was due to lack of structure, government not planning well in terms of zoning, and that was the reason why that occurred.
Right.
So Alfred, I'd like to get your thoughts on this as well. Why that?
Yeah, let me
Oh no. So what I was gonna say is 2 points, right? So the question is, why don't you have enough coverage in the Western media on the issue that is going on in Sierra Leone? And I think the answer is it going to affect the people of America? Is it going to affect the people in the West, right? Because Ebola, when Ebola came, somebody can go to Sierra Leone and then the person can come to the U.S. And the way we thought of Ebola is, if I touch the person, I'm going to get it, right? So people are more interested in Ebola because they think that there are people that are traveling to Africa and it's very possible that they might bring it back to the States. But if there are people dying because of flooding, it doesn't really affect the people in America very well. And they say, who controls the media, right? So the ratings, the people that will be watching, and then the ratings going up, they probably don't care about the flooding in Sierra Leone, but they probably care a lot about what happens in Europe. Like, okay, somebody rented a car and then drove through a bunch of people. Is it possible that it can happen in the U.S.? So then they sell, it's not like they sell, but they cover those stories more than the stories that they think will not affect our daily life in the near future.
Right.
So just to jump in here, it's unfortunate that a lot of folks here don't care about what's happening in Sierra Leone, and we believe that that does not affect us. It actually does, because we do have a huge population of Sierra Leoneans and Africans here, and we have families back there, and we make up a large number of the workforce and everything else.
Right.
So if our families back home are not safe, we are not going to be in the right psychological mindset to work and to do what we always do to contribute to the economy of this country. Okay? And one thing I also want to say is that there are two kind of news that the Western world usually focus on when it has anything to do with the continent of Africa. They are either going to deliver a fake news to make the continent look bad. That is, if something happened, they're going to actually broadcast it, but in their narrative, which I like to call his story, because that's his story based on whatever, or no news at all. So in the situation of Ebola, that we had fake news. Because even though they broadcasted Ebola, they talked about it as is an African thing. Africa is a continent, and this happened in only 3 countries in West Africa, right?
Right.
I like to call that as fake news. And they made it in a way that even we that live here were affected because people were afraid of us, right? And in the situation of the flooding that's happening right now in Sierra Leone, it's getting no news at all, because they believe that it doesn't affect them. That's a natural disaster. And I don't want to say because they don't think it's affect them. I just believe it's because it has something to do with the continent of Africa and the people that live there have a darker skin. When a natural disaster happened in Haiti, it was everywhere. True or false?
True. So what is the difference? Because the people in Haiti have darker skin too, right?
Well, yeah, but what was the U.S. interest there? Right now, what's the U.S. interest in Sierra Leone?
Well, how
Good
about
question.
How about our own community too?
Right.
How come we are not the media is not even penetrating into the whole news is not even penetrating into the whole community?
From my perspective, I'll say that we as Africans in the diaspora, we have a lot of power that we're not utilizing, and our power is in our inability to organize. Right? Our power comes when we come together as one. But that's one of our biggest weakness. We don't come together. Because if we were together, we can demand their attention. It's not just going to come to us.
There's
right?
power in numbers.
Exactly. And we are not doing that. Also, you have to understand, we have people here that work 2-3 jobs. Some people depend on the news to get their news. Not a lot of people have access to internet. And if these things are not on mainstream media, and a lot of Africans here who are not from Sierra Leone, who don't have families calling them, they're not going to have any insight on this.
That is very
That's very eye-opening, and I really
that
appreciate. I appreciate that insight as well. So, thanks for sharing. So as far as the fact that it's not out there right now, what's the common thing that you and I, the average person that's listening to this, could do to raise some awareness? So, I mean, obviously, every little bit matters. So, how do we get this circulated in the community to make this a priority?
Before I answer that, I just wanted to chip in a little bit.
Sure.
One thing that I think for us as immigrants or African as a continent is to be able to tell our stories, right?
Okay.
We often rely on Western cultures or Western media to make that known before we step in. If you look at Africa, we have the African Union, and that is made up of all these countries, the leadership of all these countries. And my question is, what have they been able to do? One thing that I know is Sierra Leone, I know they called, the government called on the new UK public health rapid support team, and that was actually established when Ebola took place. And this prevents, it helps prevent a major outbreak of diseases. So this is a team of experts that actually deployed from the UK to mitigate, such disasters. But what are the other African countries doing in terms of helping in that regard? I would hope that
I think there's been a lot of chipping from Nigeria for sure.
Oh, Ghana too.
Ghana, yeah. I think they donated like $1 million, which is not.
Which is not enough,
yeah,
right?
Which is not
But
enough.
it's something.
Which
Yeah.
is not enough.
But I mean, yeah, like you said, we could do much better. Is there like a relief, community in that sector of the world where they can,
that's
just
part
like,
of ECOWAS. That's the whole
I don't know if
ECOWAS.
ECOWAS is more.
It's
economic
more of
than-
economic
forget
and
your-
military, but it should cover all of this as well. It has certain
Yeah,
ECOWAS
but-
has certain branches to it that's supposed to cover
Kinda
all
like
of this as
UN.
well. Kind of like the UN, so it's
Yeah.
not just economic and it's just
right.
not the military part of it. But man, I'm sorry to cut you off, but
Right. No.
Yeah.
You bring up a good point. So, I mean, I always want to make those comparisons, right? So when Ebola hit, I got a call, say, hey, there's Ebola here and there. What are we doing as, the immigrant community to help? And I know that there was a lot of media coverage, a lot of attention going on. People wanted to help, didn't know how to do it. And then, the task force was formed. And one thing that I want to say is this particular task force really did a great job in terms of how they mobilize. Because every community has a leader in that task force. And those leaders were able to mobilize their communities in terms of taking action. And when the task force was formed, it wasn't like one organization that was taking on the initiative. It was just a task force. There was no name to it. It wasn't about my organization, your organization. It was just a task force made up of community leaders. So through that initiative, when CDC reached out and say, hey, what is being done? How can we help? And we say, you know what? There's a task force that has been formed. It's made up of all local community leaders. And that is how we want to be able to communicate in that regard. So in terms of relief effort, there were local medical doctors, nurses, social workers that were actually contracted to send back home. And those local nurses, social workers, those in the social sciences and medical field were actually immigrants themselves. And
Right.
they were able to be mobilized, sent there. I do recall there were public forums that were held.
Right.
And those were organized by the task force.
Right.
I haven't seen any public forum. Maybe they might have been, but the outreach hasn't been that phenomenal. That hasn't been that great.
So then what's the biggest difference, right? So Ebola happens, we have people in the community, immigrant population, doing certain things on their own, right?
Yeah.
And then we have flooding happening in Sierra Leone. Is it because it's just restricted to just one country? And therefore, the African community here is like, okay, this is happening in Sierra Leone, I'm from Ghana, and I don't really care about it, right? So the question is, we have all these religious societies or communities in this immigrant population, right? Even if the mainstream media is not covering, what is the role, what is the responsibility of our religious leaders? Because I can say 2 out of 3 Africans will consider him or herself as what? Religious, right? So we actually attend churches. What is the role? What are the responsibility of our community leaders as well as the religious leaders in telling us about what is happening and how we can actually help?
Let me just jump in here, and I'm going to be straight to the point. I'm not about to bite my tongue on anything.
Go ahead.
So, with our African folks, I don't understand if it's colonization. Why are we so used to looking up to the Western world for help? These are the people that are killing our country. Look at the foreign policy. They are killing us. We have Africans here who are in the position of raising money and raising awareness for people. You made a comparison, like, look at Ebola, look at how people came together and created this task force to help. If that task force was still in existence right now, task force should be in the position to help Sierra Leone
Utilize for
in the
selling,
first place.
right.
But our greed for power, notarization, and money is what's killing our people here. Everybody want to be upfront of something. Everybody wants money. Every organization. I'm not playing. Ebola, the reason, I truly believe the reason why Ebola got a lot of coverage, especially from the African community, because they knew that the West End community or here, people were mostly interested, right? People were interested. So they believe creating something is going to mean they're going to get a lot of attention. They're going to get money. And there was money. People were donating money.
That is interesting.
But right now, it's about grassroots organizing where there is no money. There's no one interested in giving money. But we need to create that. Nobody wants to do the work.
Good point. Good point.
Excellent point.
Excellent point. Yeah, and
I love it.
I
I don't want nobody beating me when I get out of here, so I'll just stop talking.
No, I think you make a good point as far as the world's eyes are not on us, so no one really wants to carry the torch. All right, so how do we break that cycle? And
forget about the war. How about us? Well, what
that's
are we doing?
yeah. What
that is,
are we gonna do to break that cycle?
Right.
Right, because the thing is, I mean, on a local level, there are people that are doing stuff. But again, one thing that I've seen that doesn't really work well is we working in silos. You have maybe in the Guinean community or the Ghanaian community, you have different groups that wants to work, and get that attention instead of coming together to work. And the reason why I say that is, you have people that want to give money, but they say, well, Richard, you're doing the same thing. Ben, you're doing the same thing. Bishop, you're doing the same thing. Who do I give the money to? Well, if I want to give the money, do I divide it into 3? Or do I just give one portion to you and then hold on that? So there is this kind of questions that people have. I want to give, but I don't know who to give to.
Kind of competing.
Right,
Yeah.
so we don't collaborate very well,
competing.
and we are selfish.
In terms of mobilizing,
Yes.
we need to come together to be able to have a bigger voice. And don't get me wrong, the Sierra Leonean community have something going on. They're doing something. There's a GoFundMe account that has been created. It's been shared numerous times.
But it's been more than one, though.
And there's been more than one.
More than one GoFundMe.
My point exactly. So you have people that want to give. And when Ebola hit with the task force, the funds were just coming directly to that task force. And one thing that I observed, members of those task force, there were some members of those task force with different organizations that were going out to get that, but were told, hey, you need to go to the bigger part, right?
Right.
So I see that play out a lot. People want to give, but they don't know how, because there's so many groups, so many different things going on. We need to mobilize as one community so that we can get all those funding coming in.
And I will repeat this again. We as Africans, we as Black folks, our strength is embedded within our weakness. Our strength is the number and coming together as one. Our weakness is the ability to actually come together in the first place. That's exactly what's suffering us at this moment. If we can, this is happening in Sierra Leone, but it's not only limited to Sierra Leone. This is a natural disaster.
Right.
How can we open like a fund? If they can have Red Cross, I truly believe, I don't like to reach out to white folks asking for money. I'd rather sell you something that's made by my hand and then you give me money. So we as Africans, why can't we come together and create a fund? We have a lot of Africans who are working here. If you put part of it, like part of my paycheck right now goes to United Way, okay? And that's like $2 a paycheck.
Right.
If we can have people take $2 or even 50 cents based on how much you're making, going towards a general fund where that money is going to be used, to help in situations like this. We can take care of our own situations. I believe the only thing that we should be reaching out to these folks here for is, for example, issues like immigration. That's what they have control over.
Right.
But not everything that happened in our continent, we come running to them.
Self-sufficient.
We're opening the doors for them to come back and probably recolonize us, because it looks like we can't take care of our own issues, right? But how can we do that? One, a lot of us a lot of Africans don't have trust in fellow Africans. Again, because we have a lot of people who are greedy and all that stuff, but those people are only few. Why can't like the masses come together and actually say enough is enough? This is what we're going to do as a community, right? And it has nothing to do with one person being in power, and just kill this mentality. Okay. That's the only way we can move forward.
Yeah, thanks for sharing. So. Speaking of, please, go ahead.
I don't want to cut you out. You did ask a question about what we can do now.
Right.
We have a lot of Africans here. Let's just cover the state of Minnesota,
right,
who are in different, who plays different roles in the community. We have musicians, we have promoters, we have people that work in the nursing homes and all that stuff. Why can't we go to them and they can use their position or the network to help? For example, the promoters, they can come together and have a concert. Or a show, and every proceed from that show is going to go towards helping Sierra Leone, right? And we can have the African restaurants choose a day where every sale at the restaurant, percentage of that money is going to go towards helping Sierra Leone. Like, if we do that, at least we have different people helping in their own capacity, but at least it's going to amount to something.
Okay.
Well, can we even start with the awareness, like at this point?
Right. At this point, even getting people to know of it.
No,
it's a shame that people from Africa don't even know that there's a disaster like that in the community. So why is there no enough awareness on Facebook, and people are posting flags of Texas showing solidarity
and Sierra Leone happened first.
Yeah, and how come we are not even getting that attention to our people? And the people, I don't know if it looks cool to share Texas is Sierra Leone, or is this something that the media or the people in our community should do more, or is this something that we're not pushing enough, or the coverage is not presented enough, or what? Like, what's the obstacle here?
I don't know. Maybe if we get a white man to tell them that something happened in Sierra Leone, I'm serious.
Yeah, it's
I mean, we laugh, but it's really serious, and I feel like the only way this gets taken care of, it's if we did it ourselves, and the point of this is for us to be able to give our listeners some sort of raise the awareness, B, give them some sort of a channel to be able to do that, and not on this issue alone, from a broader perspective of helping Africa and making Africa become or immigrants become where take us where we need to be instead of always being stagnant.
True.
So I like to move this forward just a little bit, and we'll get to specific things that Radio Zane is hosting to A, drive some awareness, and B, help drive a little first. But from a broader perspective, what are some of the organizations, what are some of the local grassroots efforts that's being organized that, the average immigrant here can participate, whether it's by giving his or her time or treasure or intellect to help out our fellow brethren in the Sierra Leone?
Within the Sierra Leonean community, I did mention Kev, who is an advocate and an activist for that community. They've established an account, a GoFundMe account.
Okay.
And
do you have it?
Yep, I will send you the direct link to that. But just like Alfreda said, there are numerous links. So if you decided on which link to use to donate, I would give you that direct link.
All right. So to our listeners, please stay tuned and go to radiozane.com. We'll post the direct link on there for you to donate or participate.
And I also give you his number on ways you could actually contribute or volunteer. If you're a student, you want to organize a student, a clothes drive or some form of drive within your local school district. There are ways that we could support you on that. So if you are looking at different avenues, from a local school district level, if you're a principal, you are a teacher, and you want to mobilize students to give, there are ways that you could do that. You could have a drive, like I said, donate, have some form of event towards that, and I'll give you a contact information on who you could actually contact. Same for the colleges and universities. I do know that some of the colleges and universities do have associations on campus, so they could be able to use that platform to raise that awareness. If you're a student at the local colleges, and if you're a member of some of the associations on campus, use that avenue, some of the platform to create awareness on what is happening in Sierra Leone. If you're a member of a church, ask your pastor, say, hey, you know, I come to this church, I give money every week. Is there something you could do to support the initiative going on in Sierra Leone?
Special offering for Sierra Leone.
Guess what? It's your money that is being used, and you could dictate how your money is, you know, where your money goes. So you could ask your pastor to do some kind of initiative. You could take on the lead. If you need the support, again, I'll leave my number, my name. I'll give some contact information on how you could help. Okay. If you are a member in your community, find out who your local organizations are. There are local organizations within every community. If you don't have one, you could actually let me know. You know, there are organized groups in the Twin Cities area, and there are avenues that you could help. So use your mouth, you know, use you as a person, you know, be an advocate within your community. Whatever capacity that you serve, whether you are part of a church, make sure you send that message out. And also spread the word to your local community members. Any little form of money, you know, adds up, and it would help in this initiative. Don't think about the bigger picture of, oh, how am I going to ship a whole container full of food and clothing and water to this country. Leave that to the experts, you know, those that are actually on the ground doing the work.
All right, thanks a lot. And I know, Freddie, you did allude to something that a lot of us are not taking advantage of. Most employers do have this, the ability to take a fraction of your paycheck, and it doesn't have to be much. It could be $1, $2, or whatever it is, and channel it to a specific nonprofit that you want your dollars to help. You know, it could be anything from the Red Cross, and, you know, if I'm not mistaken, you can even narrow it down to specific project. Is that correct? You know, to any other organization that, you know, you want to. So if you really care about, you know, helping the people back home at all, that's something else that you can take advantage of. But you know, besides what what Emmanuel has shared with us, is there anything that you'd like to add on this, you know, as far as, you know?
Yes, I was contacted a few days ago by this guy named Noah, but his stage name is Jaycon. He's a local Sierra Leonean musician, and they are organizing a concert in Minnesota to help raise more funds for victims in Sierra Leone. He's not yet given me a date, but he asked me to sit on there. But he have people from Sierra Leone, Liberia, Guinea, Cameroon, and Nigeria who are sitting on that board to actually make this concert happen. So they're going to have musicians from all these different countries in West Africa there.
Fantastic. And when you get this information, can you please pass it on to us so we can broadcast it through our social media outlet here through Radio Zane?
Definitely. We'll do that. And I have one question. He did mention something about the churches. You know, in raising funds, I believe sometimes the turn off here is that there is no accountability. Sometimes people give, but they also want to know where that money is going and who's in charge of it and what's happening, and we don't have that. So can we reach out to churches and also these folks that are giving out, that are asking money, can we also have some level of accountability from them? And also, can we hold our pastors accountable? Because this is not the first time such situation have happened. It has happened when it came to Ebola, the current immigration crisis, even housing crisis here. And most times when we're at the front line fighting, we see a lot of faith-based leaders, but it's most of the white pastors that are fighting for immigration for Africans. Is there some sort of accountability that we can that we have, that we can hold our faith-based leaders accountable. Because trust me, most people listen more to the pastors than they would to a community activist or organizer or anything.
That's
So
very
our
true.
pastors need to take up. They need to play a role. It's not just, oh, we will pray for Sierra Leone.
need
Right
to
now,
do
Sierra
more.
Leone needs more than prayer.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, it's very
They
true.
need money, they need food, they need milk, they need rice. So
Yeah, they need
Yeah.
everything.
Yeah.
Right.
At this point, if I can talk, we're gonna have a
But
donation.
just to chip in real
Go
quick, not just the pastors, and on the issue of accountability, of course, if you're a member of the church, you could
Yeah.
demand that,
right.
right? You could demand that aspect. But in reference to the faith-based organizations, we have the imams,
Yeah.
the sheikhs, that could also be part of that initiative, and all other religious groups that are out there that want to do something. You might not be directly affected by it, but you could mobilize in certain capacity. So please, as Richard mentioned, go to the website. My contact information will be there. Direct link on how you could donate would also be there.
Okay.
So I just want to, and
And,
we're rounding up, take this opportunity to thank Bishop Ben, Richard, for using this platform. We talked about outreach, but this is actually an avenue to send the word out.
And you don't even have to be religious, right? We all,
Right.
taxpayers.
If
right?
you're a
So-
human
Right.
being,
Yeah,
If
so
you're a human being.
get involved, and
Right.
I would like to actually broadcast Mr. Emmanuel Opon's number right now. Once again, community engagement coordinator for the city of St. Cloud. If you'd like to get involved or give something, his phone number is 320-237-6996. Once again, if you'd like to get involved, donate whatever you can, time, money, or treasure, 320-237-6996. Once again, you are listening to Radio Zane. We're all about the community improvement. We like to help our fellow immigrants take good care of ourselves and elevate ourselves to the next level. Here at Radio Zane, we like to put where our mouth where our money is. So we do have a special event that we're organizing about helping Sierra Leone. I would have our CEO Ben Osei tell you more about it.
Seriously? Yeah, thanks, man. Definitely, we're trying to get. Actually, what really started is I was on Twitter and people were asking. There's a lot of pray for Sierra Leone, but what else is doing? Are they doing?
They need more than prayers.
Yeah. So we started this initiative. We're collecting pretty much all basic needs. We are collaborating with Better Life Foundation, Belly for it. It's an organization that collects basic needs for the West African region. So we just basically anything, clothing, shoes, broom, essentials, even books, toys. There are so many stories out there where kids school, broke. The mud basically collapsed on schools, and people are just their life is done. People that had ambition to go to school to be, better Sierra Leone has gone through a lot, and it's amazing how it's still standing. From the war and Ebola and what's going on right now. So anything, even gift card. If you don't have any idea, just send gift cards, and we'll definitely put all that together. And it's going on in 4301 North Thomas Avenue, Minneapolis. American Redemption Center. We're just gonna collect all these donations and send it back to Sierra Leone. We have contacts over there that are waiting.
What's the date and time, Ben?
It's gonna be from 11. Yeah, we don't have. Yeah, it's gonna be on the September 9th, next Saturday, 11 a.m. till 6 p.m. We'll probably have to update that. And 11 a.m. to 6 p.m. And from that, anytime that you want to drop something off, just give us a call or email us info@Radio Zane, and we'll definitely find a way to come get your all the donations that you have. And I know a lot of people have are trying to mobilize, their stuff, and they want to help. People really want to help. We just don't have the medium people don't know what's going on. Okay, it's going on, but how can we help? So let's September 9th, next week, 11 to 6, we'll be collecting donation, and we'll probably do it again. We're gonna have we'll find out another time, but yeah, anything that you can get.
All right, thanks, man. Thanks for sharing. And when you do stop by, please remember to stop by and say hi to Ben Bishop or myself, Richie. One other way that you can donate is if you don't do it at our website, radiozane.com, or if you don't have the opportunity to come to this, you can always go to givemn.org as well. It's a GoFundMe account where you can be able to give. If none of these work for you, please work through your local leaders and try to give any way or how you can. Once again, we'd like to bring our show to an end. I'd like to thank, before we bring our show to an end, I'd like to thank Emmanuel Opon for being here, and I'd like to thank Miss Frida Daniels for being here as well.
What about me?
You know what?
Yeah.
All right, I'd like to thank our resident bishop. How's that?
That works for me.
Already.
You're answering Bishop. All the friends.
Tell your church.
So I want to say this. Tomorrow will be Sunday, right?
Right.
A lot of us will be going to church. So if you go to church, why don't you just bring it up? Ask your pastor, ask people in your church, have you heard about this? And what are you doing about it? So try and spread the word.
Good. Yeah, good point, Bishop. And before we leave, Alfreda and Emmanuel, any closing comments? Just a quick 2 seconds.
2 seconds.
Hey.
I have more than 2 seconds. But quite frankly, I just want to reiterate what I earlier said. Thanks Bishop, Ben, and Richard for organizing this drive. I think it will go a long way. And just to mention, even if you have nothing to give, come and show your support. It's not about giving money, but just coming there to show your support and offering words of advice. So anyone else can give. I've seen kids 3 to 5, raise huge sums of money for initiatives. So I see no reason why this wouldn't be possible. So I'm like earlier mentioned, it doesn't matter your race, color, culture, sexual orientation,
Your height.
Religious affiliation.
You trying to offend Ben?
You do matter, and we would hope that you would give. And this is a humanitarian effort. So hopefully, if you need words on how to get information out, some numbers, statistics, I believe Radio Zane will be able to provide that. So you can actually use that to send the word out. So thanks so much for...
Alfreda?
I mean, now that he's taking all the time, he said it all. Thank you guys for having us here. One thing, though, I just want people to be aware and pay attention to the different GoFundMe that is out there and that they are donating to. That they need to make sure it's credible, and that whoever they're donating to, that the funds are going to get to where it needs to be.
Very important.
Yeah.
Thanks for straightening that. Yep. All right, this is it. Thanks again for listening to Made in Minnesota, the show that highlights the wonderful things that some of our immigrant people in our immigrant community here are doing. Till next time, I am